almost 4,000 years ago, one king's name pretty much became the definition of law itself, Hammurabi. So today, we're going to dig into the man, the empire, and the revolutionary code that he literally carved into stone.
Think about it. We're talking about an age of constant conflict between city-states. And out of all that chaos, one ruler rises up, not just to conquer Mesopotamia, but to give it something way more lasting, a single system of justice put out there for everyone to see.
I mean, those were his own words, right at the top of his famous code. That is a truly grand ambition, but was it really a promise of equality, or was it something else entirely? Let's take a closer look.
To really get the code, first, we've got to understand the man himself and the empire he built basically from the ground up.
You know, Hammurabi's reign didn't exactly start with a bang. When he took over Babylon, it was kind of minor league. For the first 20 years or so, he just played defense, building up his city walls. He was playing the long game. But then it's like a switch flipped. He unleashes this blitz of military campaigns and brilliant diplomacy, takes down his biggest rivals, and by the end, he's united the entire region.
But see, conquering all that land was only half the job. The real challenge for Hammurabi was, how do you hold it all together? His solution was a super powerful top-down government, where all the strings led right back to him in Babylon. He was trying to bring order on a scale that nobody had ever seen before.
And the ultimate symbol of that new order was his code of laws. So let's talk about the myth and the reality behind this incredible piece of history. Seriously, just try to imagine seeing this for the first time. You walk into the public square, and there it is, this massive, 8-foot-tall monument of polished black stone. And carved on it are the rules that run your life. This was totally revolutionary. Law was no longer some secret that only priests and kings knew. It was visible, it was permanent, and it was public. And this thing was comprehensive. We're talking 282 different laws. 282. It covered everything from business deals and property damage to family disputes and assault. This wasn't just a list of don'ts, it was a blueprint for an entire society. Now, the core idea behind a lot of these punishments is one you've definitely heard of, lex talionis, the law of retaliation. The whole point was to create a sense of balance. The punishment should fit the crime. And of course, the most famous example is an eye for an eye. But whose eye are we talking about exactly?
Because, yeah, when you start to really look at the laws, a very different idea of Babylonian justice starts to take shape. And let me tell you, it was anything but equal.
Let's go back to that famous eye for an eye law, number 196. So if an elite man, an amalu, took out the eye of another elite man, the offender lost his own eye. Tit for tat, right? Simple. But if that same elite guy put out the eye of a common freeman, a mushkanu, the punishment wasn't losing an eye. It was just a fine. And if the victim was a slave, an ardu, the fine was even smaller, basically just the cost of damaged property.
So here's the crucial takeaway. The Code of Hammurabi didn't create a society of equals. It did the exact opposite. It carved a rigid, 3-level social hierarchy right into stone where your rights were completely dependent on your social class.
This glaring inequality leads modern historians to ask a pretty provocative question. Was the code really about justice, or was it more about justifying Hammurabi's power?
Oh, for sure. Hammurabi's own marketing was on point. The introduction and the conclusion of the code are full of stuff like this. He frames himself as this righteous king, a shepherd, picked by the gods to take care of his people, especially the weakest ones. But when you put his grand claims right next to the critical view of a lot of modern scholars, the code starts to look less like a legal document and more like a brilliant piece of political propaganda. Its main job might have been to make his rule over all these newly conquered cities seem legitimate, to frame him not as a conqueror, but as a great lawgiver.
So, okay, let's put the political angle aside for a second. What about the actual laws? Well, this is where you find some really fascinating and, frankly, bizarre contradictions.
On one hand, you've got laws that feel incredibly modern. Kick law number 5. A judge messes up a written decision, he pays a massive fine and is banned from being a judge for life. I mean, that's some serious judicial accountability right there. But then, just 3 laws earlier, you find law number 2. And this is straight-up trial by ordeal. If you get accused of a crime, you have to jump into the river. If you sink and drown, well, I guess you were guilty. If you float and survive, you're innocent, and your accuser gets executed. It's this jarring mix of sophisticated legal ideas and what feels like pure superstition side by side.
So, what was the ultimate legacy of this complex, contradictory, and propagandistic code? And what happened to the empire it was supposed to keep together?
Well, the hard truth is, the physical empire didn't last. That intense, centralized system Hammurabi created just wasn't sustainable. After he died, the economy went south, and his own godlike reputation, which he'd built up so carefully, made his sons and grandsons look weak in comparison. His enemies smelled blood in the water, and the whole empire crumbled almost as fast as it was built.
But, and this is the most important part, Hammurabi's true legacy was never going to be about borders on a map. It was an idea. The truly revolutionary concept that a society needs to be governed by written, public laws, not just the whims of a powerful ruler. That is the empire that actually lasted.
The stone itself is in the Louvre Museum today, its markings worn down by thousands of years. But the principle it represents, that justice has to be written down and visible to all, that's a cornerstone of civilization itself.
And that leaves us with a final, really important question. Hammurabi's code gave his world order, for sure, but it also cemented deep, deep inequality. It forces us to ask ourselves, how do we make sure that the laws we create today, in an effort to build a just society, don't accidentally carry the biases of our own time far into the future?